it is Mariana's you watching. Dante's Boxing Nation. Keep watching. Keep watching.
What's going on, Mikey? How you doing, man?
I'm fine, thanks.
All right, let's go ahead and get started. Mikey Garcia going up against Zlatacani, the WBC champion, January 28th on the Frampton card, the Frampton versus Cruz undercard. First thing I want to ask you, man, is this seems to be a step up in competition. Zlatacani, he's very dangerous, has power, he's aggressive, he's undefeated. Would you say on paper this is your toughest opponent?
On paper, he seems to be, very dangerous, and on video too. So definitely, one of the most dangerous fighters. Undefeated world champion for a reason. Has great power. I'll figure out, the day of the fight, inside the ring, if he really is as dangerous as he seems. But on paper, he does seem to be, one of the most dangerous fighters that I've faced.
Is there any opponents or any fights that you've been studying in particular when it comes to some of his wins?
I've seen a little bit of video on him. I don't follow a whole lot on him. I haven't seen a whole lot. My brother and my dad are the ones that have kept up watching a little more video. But I from what I've seen, like I said, he is dangerous. He has power. He carries power. Looks for that left hand a lot and likes to come forward, on the attack. So those are some things that I see in him.
Okay. Who you been sparring with in training?
We got a couple guys helping me out. Eric De Leon. We have Ashkat from Kazakhstan. I have Jose Correa from Santa Ana. These are all southpaws that we have, and I think there's another kid coming in this next week. So just different southpaws to work with.
Okay. Have you met him face-to-face yet?
The only time I met him was at the press conference.
Okay, so you guys, you met him at the press conference. Now, what was your selection process like when it came to choosing an opponent? Were there other guys you were looking at?
Well, I had asked Showtime to see if they could help me get and secure a fight with WBO champion Terry Flanagan from the UK. However, they had just announced that he was going to be fighting Verdejo, and that fight would not be available to me. So, working with Steven Espinosa at Showtime and proposing with Al Heyman and DeBella to offer their fighter if we would like to take on Zlatacani, I said, sure, let's do that. I mean, if we can't get anybody else, we'll get him. It's a title fight. I want to fight for a title, and that's how that came about.
Okay. Now, honestly speaking, Mikey, who would you say is probably, just looking, I know you haven't been in the ring with him, but who would you say looks like the toughest or the more well-rounded when it comes to Flanagan versus Zlatacani?
Well, they're both southpaws, but they have different styles. It seems like Zlatacani is the tougher, rugged, stronger guy. Flanagan might be a little more skilled, but maybe not as dangerous. So, they both have their pros and cons. They're southpaws, but there's a little different styles. Okay.
And Mikey, out of everyone you've ever sparred with, and even, if you want to include people that you fought, kind of a two-part question, who was the hardest puncher you've ever sparred or fought, and who did you learn the most from, sparring or fighting?
The one that I felt the greatest power has been, and I've always said, Edwin Valero. He had tremendous power. Maybe now I feel that maybe some of that might have also been due to the fact that I was a lot younger at the time. I was only about 18, 19, 20 years old when I was sparring him. I sparred him a lot of times, but I was a lot younger, so maybe that's also part of the reason. But I was sparring at that same time. I had sparred other fighters like, Manny Pacquiao and, Israel Vasquez, Lascano, just a bunch of other guys. And Edwin Valero just, stood out as the most,
Wow.
powerful guy.
Even over Pacquiao. That's interesting.
Yeah, and like I said, Edwin Valero just had crazy power. But one that I learned the most is probably Israel Vasquez. I sparred with him a lot for a lot of his fights against his 3 fights against Marquez, and I learned a lot from him. Just a lot of the experience and little tricks, of a veteran fighter like himself.
Okay, nice. Very informative, man. Now, I don't want to jump the gun, but all the fans want to know because everyone keeps talking about this. What would you say in the future would be your biggest career move, opponent, Terrence Crawford or Lomachenko?
Well, as far as skills and difficult, fight or one of those tough fights, I think it will probably be with Terrence because he is a bigger guy than Lomachenko. Lomachenko's still a smaller guy. So although the skills are there with Lomachenko, he's not as big. The size is not there yet. Crawford, he's got the skills and the size advantage. He's taller, bigger, fights southpaw, so that'll be a more challenging fight than a fight maybe with Lomachenko. But, I mean, that's just something that the media brings out. Bob ain't talking about anything like that. I'd never mentioned anything like that, and I really doubt that he'll mention that to me after what we went through.
Yeah, he hasn't. I noticed that he's been talking more like Crawford, Broner, and stuff like that. He hasn't really talked about Crawford versus Garcia too much. So, so do you think because both of them are promoted by Bob, you probably won't get to fight either one of them, or what?
Well, if Bob holds any grudges and is not a businessman like they say they are, I mean, I don't know if he's willing to do it. He hasn't mentioned anything. Ever since we started the lawsuit with them and we're fighting legally, he wouldn't mention me at all. He said he offered me a fight with Crawford and that I was asking for $2 million, and that's a complete lie. That fight was never offered, never even mentioned, never talked about. You could ask Terrence the same thing, and he'll tell you that fight was never mentioned to him either. However, I think whoever was in charge of Top Rank at the time, or Carl or Ty, probably told Bob that that's what they were offering me and that's what I was asking for, and that they were trying to do everything possible just to keep the boss happy. You got to tell the boss what he wants to hear. But I mean, that's a complete lie. That fight was never mentioned. Now that I'm not with them, I don't think that they're gonna be very happily, easy to work with.
Mm-hmm. I mean, do you think that Bob, even though you said he lied about it, do you think he wanted to make that fight though with you and Crawford?
I don't know if he wanted to or not. Like I said, it was never even mentioned. Never talked about, never mentioned. Now, if the business is right, they'll make the fight. If the business is right. But I don't know if the business is right for them right now. I heard, Pacquiao asking for $20 million to fight Terrence. I don't know where they're getting these figures from. I mean, it's kind of, maybe the starting point, maybe just, go high and meet somewhere in the middle, maybe. But, I mean, Terrence's numbers are not the greatest either. Pacquiao's numbers were not great in his last fight either. So I don't know what right business might be for them.
You just took one of my questions right out of right off my list, but let me elaborate on that. I was going to ask you, what do you think about the fact that Pacquiao, now Bob Arum, he wants Pacquiao. He's been aggressively trying to pressure Pacquiao to take the Crawford fight. But now Manny Pacquiao, he said he wants $20 million. That's the only way he's going to fight him. And now he's talking about fighting Jeff Horn. I mean, so what do you think why do you think Manny Pacquiao is even doing that? Do you agree with him doing that or what?
Well, I don't, what? I haven't put a whole lot of thought into something like that. It's not my career to fully pay attention to, but I think Pacquiao or his team, threw that number out there to start, like I said, start high and meet somewhere in the middle. Terrence might throw a number out there to see if, they can get something because they know what others have gotten fighting Pacquiao. So why not maybe, shoot for something that they're, close to actually, getting something more realistic. Bob wants maybe to give, hand out the torch, to Terrence. Maybe that helps Terrence's career build up more ratings. maybe later I mean, I heard Bob even talking about maybe Lomachenko and Pacquiao. And Lomachenko's numbers are not great. Numbers are actually very low compared to other fighters, that are fighting on the network on HBO, and with all the viewers that HBO subscribers that they have, and his numbers are still pretty low. Maybe they need they need Pacquiao name to raise their ratings up. They need the Pacquiao to raise their ratings, and I mean that's why Bob, I think, wants to do those fights. But the fighters need to get paid, and maybe they're the ones with the exaggerated figures, not me. Like he mentioned, it was me.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, speaking of another champion that you probably won't have a problem getting in the ring with, the WBA champion, he's been calling you out lately, Jorge Linares. What do you think about him targeting you?
That would be a great fight. I spoke to Oscar. I met him, I saw him at some fights earlier. I think it was maybe in late November or something. I ran into Oscar, and I said hi, congratulated him for victory with Linares over Kroll, and I told him, I would really I like Linares. He's doing good, and he said, I like it too. Let's make that happen. I told him I'm down for it. Let's make this happen. I would love to take on Linares. I mean, if he has a great win after the rematch with Krolla, then maybe we could meet up sometime in the summer and get that fight going. That'd be a huge fight for me. I would love that. I think it would be great business for everybody. He's top guy right now in the lightweight division, holding the Ring Magazine title and WBA title, and if WBC orders that we fight each other, then I would definitely accept that.
Nice. Do you guys have any type of history at all?
I seen him training. I had a nephew spar him at the times that I was sparring Valero, but I myself never got to spar him. I would go into the gyms with my nephew, and my nephew would spar Jorge, and I would end up sparring Valero. So me and Linares never actually got in the ring together.
Okay. And just two more questions, man. I got to ask you before I let you go, your reaction to Canelo versus Chavez. What was your reaction when you first heard that this fight may happen?
Well, I mean, it's a huge fight that the Mexican fans are going to, all tune in to watch, and big fight for the boxing, Mexican boxing fans, but it just shows, and I don't know what people are gonna say, but to me it shows like Canelo's really just skipping and jumping around and then avoiding Triple G. He's willing to go up in weight to fight Chavez Jr., but yet he won't fight Triple G. He won't fight Golovkin at the 160-pound limit. He says he's not 160, but he's willing to move up a little north to fight Junior. And it's just all this, jumping around weight class and claiming that he's not yet a 160-pounder and vacates the title, comes back down in weight, and now moves up even high. It just shows that he's avoiding Golovkin.
Yeah, that seems to be the consensus right now. What about Golovkin versus Jacobs? How does that fight play out?
I actually like that fight a lot. Both, world champions. Jacobs has very good skills. I remember him from the amateur days, and he's a very good fighter. World champion in the prime. So I like that fight a lot.
Yeah,
it'll be a very good fight for Triple G also, because Triple G, this last year didn't have maybe the biggest fights, but this next fight will be a test. A guy that's a legitimate boxer with power and great boxing skills.
Mm-hmm. And Mikey, would you say that this is kind of a tricky fight to call, because you have Jacobs, who has athleticism kind of similar to like a Kell Brook, but he's bigger, he's stronger, but he's been knocked out before. He was knocked down by Sergio Mora. Are people looking too much into that? What do you think?
No, he was knocked out before, and then he had that one loss, and he had to go through all his medical problems that he was going through, health issues, but now that he's back, I think he's actually probably more motivated, more hungry than he ever was. And with this fight coming up, I'm sure he's going to be in great shape. He can box. He's got the skills. He can move. Like I said, I remember him from the amateurs, and he's a great boxer. And I think he's going to make the fight very difficult for Golovkin. And if Golovkin, takes it lightly, he can be in for a surprise.
So if you had to slightly lean towards someone, who would you lean towards?
You know what? I'm still gonna probably lean a little more towards Triple G, based on the power, maybe the aggression, later rounds. But I wouldn't be surprised if Jacobs can box and pull off a decision.
That's exactly how I put it. That's exactly how I put it. Okay, man. Well, last thing, since you're fighting on Frampton's undercard, how do you see the main event playing out? Frampton's Leo Santa Cruz.
Well, the first fight was great, and I cannot expect anything less on this fight. I think this fight, Leo's gonna come out even hungrier and more motivated and stronger. Make those adjustments to try to regain that title. I'm hoping he does. Makes for a better fight for everybody. Frampton, I'm sure he's gonna be probably faster on his feet and just more head movement to try to keep counter punching like he did the first fight. But he's gonna have to make sure that he does even more this time. I think it's a very even fight, and either guy can take it.
Okay, man. And what should people expect, man, with you and Zlatacani?
Well, it's gonna be one hell of a fight, that's for sure. Because he's coming to bang, and I'm here to take his title. So, that's going to be one hell of a fight.
That's what it is, man. Well, thank you for your time. Anything else you want to say to the fans, man?
Just like always, thank everybody for all the support. And now that we're back, I promise you guys will remember me much more than for what I do now than what I did in the past. And I just want to thank everybody again, and everybody can follow me on social media. I'm very active on my accounts. Team Mikey Garcia on Instagram. Mikey Garcia on Twitter, Team Mikey Garcia on Facebook. Hit me up there and follow through.
All right. Thanks, man. Good luck, man. Take care, all right?
Thank you, man. You're welcome.
All right. Take care, bro. All right, bye.
Bye.
This is Bobby, and you're watching Dante's Boxing Nation.